Hi, everybody, it's Jessica, and welcome to the curated Dollhouse Thanksgiving. Today, I am going to show you how I made this adorable ham and ham slices for my dollhouse. So, to start, you're going to need some wooden dowels, some glue sticks, some acrylic paint, as well as some mini verse pineapples and some mini verse cherries. So to start this project, you're going to make kind of a wide oval shape on your either silicone mat or a ruler. I'm using a metal ruler, and I am using this wooden dowel to help me shape my ham, but to also be a ham bone for my project. So now I am going in and starting to fill in my shape with the hot glue, because we really want to build up this shape so we can get it to really look like the ham or the ham shanks that we buy in the grocery store. So this does take a little bit of time, y'all. You want to be safe with using the hot glue. Be careful when you're using hot glue so that you don't burn yourself. And you're just going to continue to layer the hot glue and give it some time in between to kind of cool off a little bit so that all of your glue doesn't continue to kind of go down and just start a big clump and pool of hot glue at the bottom of your project. So you're going to continue to build up until you get the shape that you want. It does take a little bit of time, and you do have to pause numerous times in between to make sure that the hot glue has time to cool off so that you can continue to shape it in the way that you want to. So here you see me fanning it because I'm trying to do this as a tutorial and I didn't want it to go too long. But again, we're just going to continue to layer the hot glue until we get the shape that we want for this project. Y'all, I am not really a big turkey person, and since I already have a really nice kind of turkey from Temu for my dollhouse, I thought this year it would be fun to do more of a traditional Thanksgiving that I get in my house by making me a hot glue ham. So this is why I decided to do this project. And when I posted pictures out of it, I got some really great feedback and some really great interest in this. And I thought it would be a fun project to show you all for this Thanksgiving. And I'm going to be putting this out ahead of time so that if you want to do this in your dollhouse, you'll have plenty of time to go in and do it. So here I'm continuing to shape my ham, but I'm also going in with just the tip of my hot glue to give the shape some texture, as well as to continue to layer on hot glue in the areas that I want it to be so that I can get the actual shape of a ham that I am looking for. What I love about this project is you can make this ham as big or as small as you want to, and using that wooden dowel in the middle to be kind of the ham bone just gives it a little bit more authenticity, in my opinion. So now that we have our shape looking pretty good, I'm going in and continuing to fan it a little bit. And now I am going to make my ham slices. So I just, again, make an oval on my ruler and just layer a little bit of hot glue. And I like to do mine in swirls because I think it gives great texture to the slices and makes them look a bit more realistic. Now that my ham has cooled a little bit, I'm going back over it with my hot glue tip to kind of start building in those textures a little bit deeper and making sure everything kind of looks how I want it to look. So next, I'm testing to make sure that my little areas are dry, and I'm going to go ahead now and go over my ham slices with my acrylic paint. So for this project, I am using a leather brown, a bright gold, and a deeper copper glaze so that I can get multi-layers of color on these and really make this project stand out. Now that my ham is more dry, I'm going to go over and continue to build in the texture that I want so that it's not just a big blob of hot glue, but it has those textures in it so that once it's painted, it looks really, really nice. Now that my ham is dry, I'm going over it with my first layer of that leather brown color, making sure I get into all of the little nicks and crannies and texture that I have put on this ham so that it really reads like a realistic ham. So y'all, for my colors, I'm going to be layering colors on this so that it actually looks kind of baked in and kind of glazy. So when you're doing this, just make sure you have a good layer of your base coat on so that way the rest of the colors add to and give some texture. Next, I'm going to do a little bit of mixture of my copper color and my gold, and I'm going to start to go over my ham slices so that way, y'all, it has just a little bit of a gleam to it, and it looks like it has been baked and glazed in the oven to really just give it a nice little look on camera, but also in the lighting in my dollhouse. So for my ham, I'm going over it with that same combination of color. Yes, it does look extremely gold, but we are going to go over it with that darker copper later on. So this is really just to make sure that I have another color underneath it and more depth of flavor, more depth of color in my project so that it really starts to look nice. And now I'm going over it with just the copper itself back over my ham slices, and we're going to be going over the ham as well. So as you can see, this is turning out really cute. You've got the glaze on the ham and on the ham slices as well. And the next thing we're going to do while I am waiting for my layers of paint to dry is I'm going to do my pineapple and cherry combination. So for these, y'all, I am using mini verse cherries and pineapples, and I am going to hot glue the cherries into the middle because I don't want them falling out once I have my project done. And I'm going to paint over it with the combination of gold and copper to start. Yes, these hot glue strings are the bane of my existence, which is one of the reasons it is a struggle to do tutorials. But going over these with that coloring just really makes it look like they've been baked in instead of them standing out bright red and yellow on your nice, beautiful glazed ham. So now that I have everything is dry, I'm going to go over my ham with that deeper color. And as you see, I'm going to do a layer, and I'm not going very heavy, y'all, because again, I want some of that gold to show through, but I just want this to look really nice and really glazed. But I also want it to have a little depth of color so that it doesn't look like a gold ham. I wanted this to look very realistic and really nice for my dollhouse. So as y'all can see, this is turning out great. And next up, I'm going to give this a little bit of time to dry, and I'm going to go over my ham slices again with that copper just by itself to give it a little extra glaze as well. So next up, y'all, I'm going to glue on my pineapples and cherries to my ham. I think this adds just a little bit more realism because this is just a big old honking piece of hot glue, but I think that adds a little bit more depth, and I'm just going over and touching up my pineapple and ham to give it a more of a glazed look. And then I'm going to remove them off. And this last step is optional, y'all. I like to paint the bottom of mine. You don't have to paint the bottom of yours because it won't be seen. But I thought it was an adorable idea. So I'm going over the bottom with 2 layers of my copper and gold mixture. And I did 2 layers because I wanted it to be a bit translucent so that I could continue to see my ham bone through the project. So I hope y'all enjoyed this project. I think it turned out absolutely adorable and looks like a cute ham. And I hope this is a craft that you try in your dollhouse. So until next time, this is Jessica, the Dollhouse Curator. We will be back next week with a whole new concept and a whole new video. Bye, y'all. So for our first craft, we will be making the mac and cheese. And for this craft, you will need the mini verse mac and cheese surprise ball items, which are the noodles and the cheese spread resin. I did wind up using the entire bottle of resin for this one, and I will explain why in a minute. You will also need a piece of foil to make for easy cleanup to mix your resin and your noodles in, and a piece of foam that you can portion out the individual amounts onto. So y'all, I used the entire bottle of resin because I wanted this to be extremely cheesy looking, but also it gave me a lot of great stickiness in the noodles so that as I portion them out individually, they clump together really well instead of kind of spreading out loosely. And I thought that was a really good idea. For this project, I wound up being able to get 7 little individual portions of what looked like mac and cheese. And I thought this was a really great way to use the mini verse items, which I actually hadn't used, but I also did it this way because I don't have any more of the materials that I used from last year when I made my pan of Dollhouse mac and cheese. So I thought this was a great way to utilize that project as well as to tie it to this project. Once my portions are dry, I went in and I cut each of them off of the foam individually, which was an effort of futility because the resin underneath did not dry, so they actually peeled off. So once I realized that, I peeled the rest of them off of the foam, turned them upside down, and let them bake back in the UV light for a little bit longer so that they were completely done. I do kind of wish that I could use the foam underneath, but I do think that this way turned out even better because I didn't have to worry about any of the random foam sticking out in any pictures that I was going to be doing for my holiday pictures, and it would just sit on the plate really nice and even. For our next project, we're doing the green bean casserole. I am using Mod Podge, copper paint, the same foil and bowl, light green, regular green construction paper, and a piece of white construction paper that I am painting with that copper paint on the front and the back. That will actually be our little crispy onions to go on top. And then for my construction paper and the actual green beans, I am going to cut these, but I start off with cutting the slits into my paper as you see me doing now. I have both of them put together, and once I have it cut all the way across, then I'm going to go through and cut them sideways, and I try to make them as close to what I consider to be green bean length as possible. But y'all, to tell the truth, this is paper and you can cut them at whatever size you want to. Once I get my green paper done, I am going to go in and I'm going to do the same thing for my gold paper that is now dry, so that way it looks like we have those little crispy onions all mixed into our project. And I think this turned out really good in the end. So once I have all of my paper cut, then I'm going to put everything into my bowl that I did again add that foil on top of so that it makes for super easy cleanup. And we're going to add in some Mod Podge. I do have glossy Mod Podge. You can use matte if that's what you have, or you can also use clear Elmer's glue, or you can use regular Elmer's glue. But once I get everything mixed in how I want to, then I'm going to take my green foam that I have off to the side, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the mac and cheese, which is portion it out into individual little servings, and we're gonna give that time to dry. So for this one, y'all, I did try to make sure that I had enough of the copper mixed into the green for each little serving so that it gave just a little bit of extra color and dimension to the project. So once these are dry, y'all, I do the same thing I did with the mac and cheese and cut these out individually. These worked so much better since it was not resin that I had used, and they stuck to the foam the way they were supposed to. And I think these turned out really well. And surprisingly, the glossy Mod Podge did not stick out as glossy as I thought it was going to be. And I think it turned out really, really well. And for this one, I got 6 individual little serving portions that I can use in the dollhouse. For our next craft, we're going to be doing the candied yam. You will need Mod Podge. I am also using a copper acrylic paint and some orange foam. So the first thing I do is to cut me some yam shapes out of the orange foam. And once I have that done, I'm going to go in and I'm going to hot glue the shapes individually to the orange background. So y'all, I did 3 of the shapes a piece so that I could have a little dimension and height paint in my project so that when I cut these out and put them on the plate, they don't just look flat and one-dimensional in my pictures and in the dollhouse. However, y'all, as I have said before, hot glue strings are the bane of my existence when I am crafting. So y'all will see me struggle not only with my nail extensions and trying to pick up these itty bitty orange foam pieces, but also, as you see, I am struggling with all of these hot glue strings. But once I get all of them glued down, and for this project, I did 6 individual little portions. Once I get them glued down, I'm going to mix my Mod Podge, just a couple of drops of the copper paint, and some water up so that way I can go over the top of all of these and give these individual pieces the same type of glaze that I got on the one in the pan. So as you can see now, I'm going over it with the paint. And y'all, I will admit that the first ones I did were a little too dark. So as you see, I'm kind of dabbing off some of the paint as I go over the rest of them. But it did give me a cute little idea after I realized I was getting a little too much paint on there for what I was looking for. And I did a little bit of painting around each of the areas so that when I cut them out, it actually looks like there is like the juice from the candied yam or the glaze kind of around and pooling. So that was a happy little accident that happened from me crafting and having too much paint on my brush to start with. The other thing I will say on this one is for these, I will probably wind up going over these with some more Mod Podge because they did not have the full shine that I wanted. So, but I went ahead and accepted it for now, and it wasn't until I took pictures of these later on that I realized I wanted a little bit more shine. So I will be adding a little bit more glossy Mod Podge to the top of these just to give them a little extra sheen and look that I want for my dollhouse pictures. For our next project, we are doing the dressing, and this is the easiest of them all. So I am using this kind of polystyrene styrofoam that I used for my bread craft a few months ago, and I am only making 3 individual portions of this one. So what I'm doing is using some orange acrylic paint, a leather brown acrylic paint, and some gold glitter paint. I thought the glitter was adorable, and it doesn't really stand out that much, y'all, but it gives it just a little sparkle when you get real up close. But I'm going in and I've cut these individually to make my 3 portions, and now I'm going over it with my paint so that I can fill in all of the sides so that I have little individual portions of this dressing that I think is absolutely adorable. I recommend for this one, y'all, you could use regular styrofoam, but that little puffy area, and I think it's called styrene, but I'm not actually sure, but that one is absolutely perfect. It has a great texture, as you can see in the big pan, and it really does look like dressing, and it also doesn't take very much paint to get it covered how you want to. So I thought this was a really nice idea this year to make a quick, easy, simple dressing for my dollhouse. And our final craft for today will be cranberry sauce. So for this one, y'all, you will need a glue stick, some cranberry looking nail polish. Mine is called Divine by Revlon. And I did realize after the fact that it was not the same exact color that I used last year for the craft, but it still turned out pretty good. So I used that little cutting tool. I don't know what it's called. I kind of stole it from my husband today, but I used that to cut me 6 little small slivers of glue stick, and now I'm going over to paint them on the top and the sides. So y'all, a word of caution, I do recommend that as you are painting the top and the sides of your glue sticks, definitely use the tape and take them down so that they're not sliding all over the place. But once they are dry and you go to flip them over to paint the bottom, do not stick them to the tape. Y'all, of the 6 that I did, I only got 2 that came off of that tape successfully, and I had to repaint 4 of the other ones. Now, it was super easy to do, but it was a bonehead move, and I should have known better. So I am definitely telling y'all, do not stick them to the paint once you have them painted. Just use the foil or whatever you're using and lay them down on, and it will work out much better. But once I got these all painted, they turned out really adorable. And I actually like the two-tone design in the cranberry sauce from the one that I did last year to the one that I did this year. I think it looks really good and gives just extra dimension to our dollhouse crafts. So y'all, the reason why I wanted to do this craft this way and make the little individual portions is because I don't know about your family, but everyone in my family doesn't eat the same things, and they definitely don't eat them the same way. So I love the idea of being able to make individual plates with all of these individual little items. And this gives me an opportunity to use all of these year after year and do them different ways every time. I think these are some super easy crafts that we have made today, and I hope you try this in your dollhouse for your holiday dishes. Hi everybody, it's Jessica, the Dollhouse Curator, and today we are going to be digging into doll bread crafts. We are going to be covering a couple of doll bread crafts that you can use in your dollhouse that are easy and simple to make with items you may already have. Hi everybody, it's the Dollhouse Curator, and today I'm going to show you how to make sliceable loaves of bread using just a few simple crafts with some hot glue, brown paper, styrofoam, and scissors. To start, I take a piece of styrofoam and I trim it into the shape of bread that I want, making sure to go all the way around so that it gives me a really nice shape. Second, I'm going to take some brown paper that I got off of an Amazon box, and I'm going to test the template to ensure that it fits the way I want it to. And we're going to go ahead and trim off any extra paper and fix up any kind of unsightly edges. Next, I'm going to go ahead and start gluing my template bread onto my paper, making sure to cover the edges and give a good spreading of hot glue all the way around so that my paper adheres to my template really, really well. We're going to do this all the way around, making sure to be very careful because hot glue does burn, and I did get burned a couple of times during this. But we're going to make sure to cover all the way around, and on the outside coverage edge, I only cover halfway so that I don't have an unsightly seam on the edges of my bread. So you're going to trim off the extra on the other end and then go around to make sure that all of your edges are neat and tidy how you want it to be. And then I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue to finish up any unsightly edges and to fill in any gaps in my front and back of my bread. I also cover a little bit onto the styrofoam so that it gives it a good feel. And then if you really want to take this to the next level, you can wrap it in some plastic so that it looks like an actual loaf of bread from the store. This is what I did before with my old loaf of bread that I used, but I love this craft even better because you only need paper, styrofoam, scissors, and hot glue, and plastic if you choose. And this bread is sliceable. Now, I'm being very careful because I'm using my new table and a very sharp knife, but I love the idea of having this bread that I can display in my dollhouse and be able to cut slices from to make it look like a full awesome scene. For our next doll craft, I'm going to show you how you can make a doll loaf of bread. For this craft, you will need 3 blocks, a paper towel, scissors, hot glue, and some brown construction paper. This project is super easy, and we're going to start off by gluing our 3 blocks together to create our template for our loaf of bread, and then we are going to cover these blocks with paper towel. I like to start by covering the bottom, wrapping my paper all the way around to meet the other side, and then going back around using my hot glue to not only adhere my paper towel, but also to help provide me a little more depth of shape to make my bread loaf look a little bit more realistic. After I get all of my paper towel wrapped around, I'm going to trim off all of the excess and then go over each of my sides except the bottom with some additional hot glue so so I can get the shape that I want. Once I have that done, I'm going to take my smaller piece of paper towel, line it up with my back edge, let it overlap onto the front where we're going to cover that front block, which will become our showing bread piece. And then I'm going to secure all of my edges around. Next, we're going to take some construction paper. I got mine from an Amazon box because I like these lines on the top where it makes it look like bread. And I'm going to wrap that around my bread loaf, ensuring to cover my entire template as I'm wrapping. This will help secure my paper and also make my bread template a little bit more shapely. Once we have our entire template covered, then we're going to trim off the front edge and we're going to leave extra on the back so that we can wrap the back edge in the brown paper so that it looks like our bread loaf end. Once you have all of your area wrapped up, I'm going to go in with some hot glue and secure around any edges that have not adhered well and put a little bit on the front to make it look realistic. And then I'm going to take my plastic and wrap our bread loaf like our regular bread. We hope you enjoyed this craft. Let's see what's coming up next. For our final project, we are going to create an open slice bread loaf. For this project, you'll need the same items that we needed for our sliceable bread, and we will also be using a sharp box cutter. Once we have our styrofoam bread template all covered, we are going to go over the top on 3 sides with equal intervals of hot glue. I do this to make my bread loaf look a bit more realistic and also give my loaf a bit more structure. Once my hot glue is dry, I am going to start cutting little slices into the bread, ensuring that I am not cutting all the way through my styrofoam template so that I'm not actually creating slices, but I am making the top look like it is a sliced bread loaf. Please be careful when using your sharp objects and ensure, again, not to cut all the way through the bread. Once I have cut all of my slices, I am going to take my template and I'm going to spread my slices out a little bit and kind of crush them up just to give my bread loaf a little bit more texture and realism. And then I am going to take my plastic and start wrapping it around my bread loaf just like we did in our additional crafts. Except for this time, I'm only going to be closing it on one end. I'm going to take a few of the slices that I had left over, put them in the opening of our template, and we have created an adorable open bread loaf that looks like our dolls have made sandwiches. We hope you have enjoyed this craft on how to make bread for your dollhouse. I love this idea. It was one of the first crafts that I did for myself that I really enjoyed and got some great feedback on. And it has been great to kind of upgrade this craft for you and give you not one, not 2, but 3 different ways to create doll bread crafts for your dollhouse. Bye, y'all. All right, y'all. So what I am going to be attempting to do today is to make a cute little fire pit. Let me get my light right. Y'all know I got my new spotlights for the dollhouse, so that has been so helpful. So I am going to be using one of the Mini-Verse capsules to do this, or just half of it. So y'all, I recently got one of the new Mini-Verse appliance series. So I wound up getting the stand mixer. Y'all will see that in another video that I have coming up over the actual dollhouse. But when I saw the little collab, I was like, oh, I think this would be super fun. And yes, I am late getting this out, so y'all forgive me, ladies. But I also do believe that it's better late than never when it comes to doll stuff. So y'all, what I did is I took half of the capsule, and I had some spray paint in the garage. So we spray painted this as a satin espresso brown. I love it. It looks really cute and shiny. So we are going to be doing a fire pit today. So y'all, on top of using this capsule lid, I'm also going to be using some wood slice coasters that I got from Family Dollar. There are 2 in each pack, and they're $2 a piece, so that's pretty much $1 a piece. I am also going to be using some flickering tea lights that I got from the Dollar Tree. You normally get 2 in a pack for $1.25 a piece. We'll be using 3 today. I have some natural wood. These are just wood sticks from the yard. And y'all, I used these the other day and I turned my can into a real cowboy short. So if y'all haven't seen that, check out my shorts on my YouTube channel. And I'm also going to be using, I just call these River Rock, y'all. But I get these from the Dollar Tree as well. So I have these in black. I have them in kind of a pretty crystal green and blue, but I thought the black ones would be really nice for today. And that's all we need, y'all. So to do this, I was thinking about doing some hot glue, but I've decided against that because y'all know I like to keep a lot of stuff kind of interchangeable. But to start, I'm going to use my wood coaster as the base of my fire pit. So it has something to sit on and kind of give it a little extra interest in the area that I'm going to be using it in. And then my tea lights, y'all, these are these flickering tea lights. So I think these are super cute. And for this quick little craft, I'm going to go ahead and put these in here and I'm going to turn them on so y'all can see what it will look like as we are putting it together. So there you go. I have all my little flickering tea lights in there. I'm using 3. Now I'm going to take my River Rock, and I also have some extras over here, y'all. So this has got some little extra River Rock and some little Dollar Tree vegetation in here. So I should have enough of these in here to do what I want to do. But I'm going to take these River Rocks and just fill in on top of my tea lights. And I want to make sure I keep these as much at an angle that I want as possible. So I'm going to try to strategically place some of my River Rock so that my tea lights don't get too kind of messed up in here. And I'm going to try to fill it in so I can fill in all of the white of the tea lights. Now, y'all, when I do this permanently, when I say permanently, like when I get my space set up, I will probably go through and paint my tea lights black so that they don't stand out at all. But I think for now, this will be good enough. And again, just going to take some of these small ones and put it over there to cover that up as best as possible. And then we're going to take our wood that we have. And again, this is free, y'all. This is courtesy of the backyard and windstorms from the trees in my yard. And I'm just going to lay my wood on top and again, try to cover up as much of it as I can. Now, y'all, we know this is a dollhouse craft, so if you can't get everything covered up exactly how you want to, or, you know, exactly perfect, that is fine, because it is your dollhouse. And I do believe that, you know, if people are looking that close, they are looking too close when it comes to anything to have to do with the dollhouse or anything in general, if it ain't got, if they're just looking to give you a little negativity on what you are creating. So there you go, y'all. We are at 6 minutes, and I don't know if y'all can see it real well, but there you go. That is a really cute little fire pit. I used, again, 3 tea lights, some River Rock, some sticks from my yard, and this little wood coaster, and just half of a mini verse capsule that I spray painted with some spray paint that I had left over in the garage, y'all. But I think this looks really good. And I'm gonna turn off my little spotlight, and y'all see, I think that has pretty good little fire look. So I also thought about maybe trying to put something over the top to make it look like some of the really high-end fire pits that you see at like Lowe's and Home Depot. But then I was like, no, because I'm gonna have to be able to get to my tea lights really quick so that I can get everything turned off how I want to. So I wanted to leave it as simple as possible. But I thought this was a really cute and really quick craft that you could do with a part of a mini verse capsule that you may have left over and some things that you may already have in your dollhouse. So y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed that quick little craft video. I'm gonna bring it up here so y'all can see it next to me. And look, I really do think it's throwing off pretty good light.